What was it like growing up during apartheid?
It wasn't complicated. It was a way of life as a young boy. That's how we lived. We had friends across the color divide. We played a lot. But when evening fell, when dusk fell, we parted ways. We went to our own houses, our own bedrooms, attended our own schools. And there was always this sense of almost instilled in us of superiority. This is the way it is, and this is the way it's going to be. And one lived that life without really questioning it.
And did your parents have any influence on your political views while you were growing up?
When one looks back at those years, undoubtedly so. However, they were not politically inclined. My father, being the policeman I alluded to earlier on, believed that you serve everyone in the community. And he hated party politics in particular. And my mother was a very gentle woman, the teacher that she was, and it was enjoyable to be in her company. So they didn't drive me in a particular political direction, but I would like to believe in honoring them that the values that they, in a very quiet way, instilled in me later in life shaped me and helped to become who I did become.
And what about your church? What influence did that have on you?
One must not forget that in the earlier years, the Dutch Reformed Church, the church that we belong to, uh, was in a lighter tone always referred to as the National Party in prayer. So the Dutch Reformed Church were very supportive of the National Party government and and shall I say its leadership. Broadly speaking, its leadership. It was only in later years, I would venture to say during my student days and even beyond, that the National Party and the Dutch Reformed parted ways. Not in a serious manner, but there were certainly voices that I associated with and that I was felt attracted to, and that inspired me to draw a line in the sand and said, well, first of all, you cannot justify uh, apartheid on religious grounds, first of all, and secondly, we have to um, to make a U-turn. So, in that sense, it was only later in life, and those figures were larger than life figures, and they reached out across the political divides and also across the racial divides, and they greatly inspired me.
It's something I've wondered about. And in your book, Encountering Apartheid's Ghosts, you mentioned that there was a distinct feeling when you were growing up within the Afrikaans community of having suffered previous grievances at the hands of the English during the Boer War, the Boereoorlog. And to me, I've always felt that this might make a community more sympathetic to the oppressed. But why then was the response to double down and kind of turn the tables and become, in many ways, the oppressor?
That is a very tricky question to answer because I have grappled with it in the past and I still continue to grapple with it. If you read some of the Afrikaans newspapers, even to this day, here in Gauteng, where I live, there are always columns publishing stories about the Anglo-Boer War. It's quite strange. It continues, and it continues to attract attention. I think I can say that without being questioned, that the Afrikaner people during that particular war was humiliated by the British. There are enough examples of that. And that sparked a feeling of Afrikaner nationalism. And it sparked that sense. It drove Afrikaner nationalism to the hilt. But then that sense of now being in power um, almost drove them to the other extreme, believing that we now have to protect this power that we hold in our hands, um, and in that sense, then overstep the mark by again humiliating fellow South Africans, almost as if Afrikaners believed that they were the only people that suffered and were humiliated. And often it was only later years that I personally and Afrikaners in general came to realize that we were all humiliated in that war, because our fellow South Africans had the hopes that they would, at the end of the war, at the conclusion of the war, being recognized as full South African citizens and have the rights to participate in 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 governing our country. So we were all humiliated. It's a difficult question to answer, but I'd like to believe that we were blinded by our own humiliation and we couldn't see uh, the tree from the woods.
That makes a lot of sense. And so, during your travels abroad after you finished school, you met several people who were highly critical of the apartheid state. And what effect did this have on the way you viewed apartheid at the time?
Profound. It had a profound effect on me in a number of ways. First of all, if when you travel, it it broadens your horizons, but it also creates an opportunity to look at yourself from the outside. Having left, I wanted to my hitchhiking experience, as a cycling experience abroad after school, um, was sparked by the idea to understand and discover the bigger world for myself. But the spin-off was that I couldn't defend apartheid, first of all. Secondly, not only could I not defend it, I I realized that apartheid, as envisaged by, shall I say, the apartheid apostles at the time, uh, was totally impracticable and wouldn't materialize or realize the results which they envisage. So those earlier travels broadened my horizons. Later travels as as a student, as a backbencher in parliament, helped me to shape my thinking and mold my own, shall I say, hopes for the future.